Welcome to the Ask the Pro show. This is where I'm bringing on the world's best experts and the solo sessions, giving you the answers to build your fitness business. Now, if you're confused with how to build your fitness business, whether it's face-to-face or online, I want to make sure that you have the answers so you can literally pull the trigger from today and start walking through what really works. Now, before we jump into this episode, the best place where you can go after each episode is in the Fitness Business Success Circle. This is where all the trainers and coaches are coming together. You can ask the questions, but you're also going to be able to get access to the live streams, the guides, the programs, and so much more as well. I'll make sure I pop a link below so you can join and request access for free into the Fitness Business Success Circle as well. And if you haven't, then I highly recommend that you do take the quiz. I'll pop a link below for you, but take the quiz so you can get access to the actual free program that's going to be specific because, look, let's be perfectly honest, you can't have a cookie cutter answer for your business. So it's going to find out where your business is at, where you want to go, and give you the actual guide to get you on your way. So make sure that you do take the quiz to get ongoing in that. So make sure that you enjoy this episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Joel, thank you so much for coming on to the Mind Body Blends podcast. I'm pumped to have you here. One, because it's just been way too long since you and I have caught up properly, and we've just been chatting for way too long, and we've just got to hit record so everyone else can jump on in our conversation. But before we jump into everything, mate, I just want to say a huge thank you for being on here and really getting ready because there's a lot that we're going to cover right now.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I know it's been a long time in the works.
All right, let's jump into who Joel is, why you are so phenomenal.
I gotta be my own hype man here.
You are.
So my name is Joel Runyon. I run a site called Impossible, which is a mindset and fitness site focused on really pushing your limits and doing the impossible. And I got started with that, like five plus years ago now. I was sitting at home in my parents' basement. I graduated college, did everything right, got the double major, did the extracurricular activities, learned another language, traveled, did all this stuff, and basically found myself after 4 years of school, 9 months out of college, being unemployed in my parents' basement with nothing to do. I couldn't get a job anywhere. It was 2009. Not a great year to go get a job as anyone, but especially as a new college grad, no prospects out there whatsoever. Worked for a short period of time at UPS before they fired me the day after Christmas. Like that. Well, they hired us for seasonal work for 6 weeks. The economy was so bad, they only sent us out for 3 weeks. And then they fired me and the rest of our seasonal workers right after Christmas. And so I'm sitting there in my parents' basement, wanting to do something with my life, but everything seems impossible. I wanted to travel the world. I didn't have any money. I wanted to start my own business, but I couldn't even get a job. And then I had all these fitness goals that I wanted to do too, but I was just in this mode of not being able to do anything that I just kind of felt like everything was impossible. And so I started making a list of all the different things that I wanted to do. And it was stuff like travel the world, start your own business, and I kept telling myself over and over and over, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. And then I came to one of the goals, and it was run a triathlon. And I don't know why it was on the list. I didn't know anybody who had run a triathlon before. I didn't even know what 3 sports were in a triathlon. But it was intriguing to me. And so I had all these reasons why I couldn't travel the world, had all these reasons why I couldn't start my own business. But when it came to triathlons, I was like, there's no reason why you can't go outside and run around the block. And there's no reason why you can't jump on a bike, your 8th grade bike, and jump on it and ride around the block and start training. So I did that, and I trained for my first triathlon. And I was so scared that I was going to fail, I did an indoor triathlon. So if I started drowning in the water, I could just stand up in the pool. And so I did the triathlon. I trained for it, and I did it. And I remember a very specific thought coming in my head at the end of the triathlon, which was, you spent so much time telling yourself this was impossible, and as soon as you trained for it, you were able to do it. And so if that's true, what other things out there are impossible in your mind, but if you trained for it and you went after it and you tried to do it, you'd actually be able to go do it? And so that was how everything got started. And I decided I was going to take this list of things that I wanted to do. I was going to put them up on a blog, and I was going to blog about it just for no other reason than my mom would read it, my brother would read it and make fun of me, and I would be forced to go do some of the things, or try to do some of the things that I wanted to, or I thought I might want to do. And since then, I got a job, I got a promotion, I quit that job, I started my own business, done a lot of different things, went from not running farther than a 5K to running ultra marathons and doing all sorts of other fitness related goals and travel stuff. But it all came down to that triathlon and me questioning my definition of impossible. And if if I spent so much time telling myself that running a triathlon was impossible, and it just comes back to that question of, if you actually go out and try something, what if it could happen?
It's so interesting how we can just get in our own ways when with our limiting beliefs, or just that talk, that voice in the back of the head that's saying, no, you can't, or that's impossible, or you can't do that, these things, and we give it too much fuel. We listen to that as well. When it was like, I find it really interesting. What got you to actually write down that list in the first place?
So I was reading a couple of these other bloggers out there that were doing cool stuff. So if you know Chris Gillibo, so Art of Nonconformity, when I started, looking at all these things I wanted to do, he was going to every country in the world. Yeah. And I saw Chris's, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I'm like, I would like to go anywhere outside my parents' basement. That'd be nice. But I don't have, I don't have any money. I can't get credit cards because I don't have, I could have gotten a credit card, but I couldn't open like 20 of them because I didn't have any income. And I was just reading all these different things that I wanted to do. And it was kind of an internal thing where I was like journaling and writing stuff down. It was just like, I want to do that. Well, Joel, you can't do that. I couldn't get a job at Starbucks even. So it was one of those things where I was getting rejected in all these different ways, of, job prospects, of travel, of like even just, getting an apartment outside of your parents' house. And it was one of those things where I, with triathlons, it was one of those ones where I was in this habit of like, oh no, you can't do this for this reason, because Starbucks didn't call back, or because, you don't have any money, or nobody's hiring. And then I came to triathlons, and it was like, there was no, I just told myself I couldn't do it, and there was no actual reason. And then once I started to examine that after a little bit, I was just like, I'm just going to try it. And it was just one of those things. And then after I did the triathlon, I was like, okay, well, what's next? I did an indoor one. Yeah. What's the next distance? And so there's a sprint distance. So I did the sprint. And then after I did the sprint, there's an Olympic distance. So I did Olympic, and then a half Ironman, and so on. And it was one of those things I've talked about. I have this list on my site called the Impossible List. And it's one of these lists. And a lot of people compare it to a bucket list. And the difference, the distinction I've made is a lot of people write a bucket list one time with the stuff they want to do before they die, and they try to knock it all off. And my concept of the Impossible List is, I started with a really small list. I was like, I want to do a couple things. I want to get a job. I want to do a triathlon. I want to do X, Y, Z. And my list gets bigger as I do more and more things, and I realize more things are possible, whether it's starting a company, whether it's traveling, whether it's doing specific fitness events. I start to realize, what an impossible goal is to me keeps expanding. It keeps getting bigger, and then I have to keep continually reset my goals. And the idea is you continually expand it, but you never quite finish it. So
I like that. It's like, yes, okay, but how do you operate with that today? Like, tell me how you sit down. What are the things on your impossible list right now that you're going after? And how do you wrap your head around saying, like, yes, I'm going to do that, and this is how it's going to happen?
So there's kind of a mix of different goals right now. So some are fitness related, some are business related, some are just kind of like event related. And so a lot of the stuff, up to a couple of years ago, I got to a point where a lot of the stuff was like, it didn't seem that impossible. And that's kind of the growth mindset is, you want to set goals that seem unreachable. And then as you grow, it kind of forces you to grow into a person that's like thinks those goals are reachable. And so um, a current project that I'm working on right now is called the 777 project, and it's a project to run 7 ultra marathons on 7 continents and build 7 schools with a nonprofit called Pencils of Promise.
Oh, that's epic.
And
That's so good.
so I'm too. So this has been a whole big thing, and I started a couple years ago and actually got hurt like right after the first one, and then I got sued right after that, and so I had to take a break. But I'm finishing it up in the next 5-7 months or something like that. And I've just did the Chicago Ultra Marathon, so I've got 2 continents down, 2 races on 2 continents. I've got 5 left to go, and that really came out of me wondering. I'm actually writing a post on this because I took a little hiatus from the project because I was having a lot of legal issues and business stuff that I had to focus on. But when I started it, I wanted a project that I was like, oh, that's going to be really tough. I don't know if I can do that. And then I didn't realize, I thought it was going to be tough just because of the running and maybe some of the fundraising, but I didn't realize like the injuries that would pop up and then like the business stuff and the focus. And it's one of those things when you set these really big goals, you want there to be a possibility of failure because it makes you grow in new and different ways. And so I try to sit down every 6 months and like look at my impossible list and be like, if I'm feeling bored with myself, I look at the list and say, is there anything on there that you can go out and do right now?
Yeah.
And then if there is, I try to go do them. Some of them are like events that I want to go to. So sometimes, you have to like, sync those up with times. But, if there's something on there and you're like, well, I could do that, or there's a bunch of stuff in like, the fitness, that you're like, oh, I think I could go out and do that right now. Then you start to like set up a higher goal or a more difficult goal and try to push yourself in a different way. So I try to review it and update it on a regular basis every 6 months at least. And then, kind of the end of the year, I start looking at, how I can update it in a new and interesting way and really find a way to push yourself and kind of scare yourself, because I find the best goals are ones that scare you a little bit.
That's a really good point. And like when you sit down for that review process, what do you do? Because I feel like that would be one of the most critical parts of the whole movement, because that's when you're like, okay, shit, I'm going to do this. Or maybe you back yourself down if you're not in the right mindset or not in the right state. Like, how do you actually go through that process?
So a lot of it is kind of reviewing, like having kind of a very realistic reason of why you are not doing something. If something's on the list, You're like, okay, well, is this a timing thing? Is it a capability thing, or is it a scared thing? And if it's a scared thing, you have to really just like there. You have to get yourself there at some point. Like if it's a timing thing, I don't mind. Like oh, I gotta wait till the spring, or or if there's like a half step before you get to. I'm trying to use real goals. I'm actually going to pull up.
Nice.
I'm pulling up right now. So for, let's say, so for 777, some of it's timing, right? So some of it is like, okay, there's not a race in South Africa until April. So that's when I'm going to do the race. It's not because I'm scared. It's not because whatever, but I'm going to be training up until that date in order to do that race. There's some stuff like I have a planche push-up on there. You're familiar with planches. So like those, I don't even really have a concept for how I'm going to pull that off, because those guys are incredible. They're really amazing bodyweight athletes. And I don't even necessarily have a concept for how I'm going to achieve that, other than immediately starting like the base strength that you need to. And how do you do that? You do a crap ton of push-ups. You do a lot of push-ups. You do a lot of just strength, overall strengthen you in that way. And so to me, there's a little bit of understanding what the kind of the levels of it. And I've done a decent job, I think, on the site of using the impossible list. If I do have something that's like a really big, scary goal, I have stair steps to get there. So instead of doing, a planche push-up right off the bat, it's like do 100 push-ups and knock those out. And then do one planche push-up. Don't worry about doing 30. Do one planche push-up. Have a celebration, have that be a stair step, and then work on knocking more of those out. So I try to, you try to categorize it, whether it's going to be, based on a timing thing. And then like, if you review it once a year, you say, okay, I'm going to do stuff earlier in the year, and then I'm be all trained up for some bigger stuff in the fall. And the biggest thing that I found is like the big scary goals, like there's no like trick to it. It's just, you just have to sack up and do it.
Yeah.
And there's like, that's the thing, a lot of the stuff that I've done, it's not even always the best. It's not even the best to like say, this is how you train for. I trained for it like this, and this is how you do it. Because a lot of stuff I find, I'll be at the fitness level that I need to for it, but the fitness thing is not what's missing. A lot of think it's like, oh, you have to train for X, Y, Z. At some point, a lot of the goals just take guts.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, I need to, I find when I push stuff off, it's a lot more times than not, it's because of the guts factor. It's not about the fitness factor, or it's not about the readiness factor. It's just about like, are you going for it or not? And if you're not going to go for it, then it's not going to happen.
Do you find that either yourself or the other people that do this as well, do you find that they are like, they balls up and say, yes, okay, I'm going to do this. This is on my impossible list and I'm going for it. But then they start to put things in their way, such as, oh, well, I need to be fitter, or I need to train for this long, or I need to do these things. Like, how do you try and break through those barriers as you move along?
So for me, a lot of the stuff that I have on mine is a lot of it's, so first of all, one of the things I talk about on Impossible more than anything is mindset.
Yep.
And like, once you decide something's, for me, once I decide something's done, it is already done. It doesn't matter if it takes me a long time. The 777 project that I started a couple of years ago, I'm going to do it. Yeah. It is done. It's taking me a lot longer than I'd like it to be quite honest, but it's going to be done, and I'm not going to not do it. Yeah. And so I'll be in the middle of races. I'll be, in the middle of a project, and a lot of them are endurance based, and I literally have conversations. I remember when I did my first 100-mile bike ride or something like that. It was in the middle of Indiana, which is supposed to be really flat, and somehow this course was like the hilliest part of Indiana. It started pouring and then hailing, and then we had a tornado warning in the middle of it. And they were starting to pull some people off the course, and like you could keep going, but you had to stop at different sections. And I remember at one point I was just in the middle of this cornfield, nobody's around, like cell phone service isn't working, nothing's working. And I just had this like come to Jesus moment where I was like, unless I break my legs, like this is finishing. I'm finishing this. The only way I'm not finishing this race is if I break my legs. And I really had that, like, this is what I'm willing to, I'm willing to freeze. I'm willing to be hailed on. I like spoke all the things that I'm like willing to happen during the next few hours that I'm going to be out on my bike. And all of those things happened. And then when they came, I was like expecting them. I'm like, okay, we're going to have a tornado. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to keep going.
Through a tornado.
Like, yeah. And it was just one of those things. And I was like, I think the biggest thing that keeps people from doing that is they don't expect it to be hard. They think, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to be easy, or it's going to be difficult. And it's like, if you expect it to be hard, then when it is hard, you're not like, oh my gosh, it's so difficult. How am I ever going to do it? You're like, oh, it's hard because I knew that.
Yeah.
This sucks, but you can kind of laugh at it. You can on that specific example, I was riding my bike into the wind and I was just laughing. I was like, I probably looked like a crazy person, but if you get frustrated that it's difficult or that it's tough, you end up just, you become one of these people that set all these lofty goals and never actually finish it. And the people that actually do the tough things, you get comfortable in that trough. You get comfortable in that, the not a set, like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a little bit of like solemnness where you're just like, this isn't fun and I'm not enjoying this, but I'm gonna enjoy not enjoying this. I'm gonna figure out a way to get through this and just, deal with the pain and like make the pain your friend. And
I tell you what, Joel, I'll just jump in because one thing I absolutely love about this and this whole process is, and I wrote a post about this just a few days ago, but it was like, maybe rather than always thinking about what you want to achieve, think about who you want to become. Because if you really boil this back down to your story right now, think about the cellular and complete energy difference of you right now to that person 5 years ago in your parents' basement where you were like, I can't do shit, everything's against me, and now you're like, I'll ride through a tornado. Like, I will literally get there unless physically, it physically can't do it. Like, my leg won't actually move if it's broken, but I'll probably crawl there anyway. Like, and being able to grasp that. Yeah, it's like tornado, yeah, whatever. But I think what is brilliant about this is you're comfortable being uncomfortable now. And now, as you said, like with the growth mindset, and I can see the book, like looking up at it now, Carol Dweck's, is like, now it's just like, well, everything's opened up.
Yep. And really the only thing that's changed is the perspective on it, because 5-6 years ago when I was in my parents' basement, I was like, oh, I can't do shit. Everything's against me. And I'm like, everything's against me. Let's go.
Yes.
Like, there's a difference.
Yes.
And it's actually way more fun because, one, less people are doing that stuff. Two, we were talking earlier, and it's just like the hard stuff is the stuff we're doing. It's if you're always doing easy stuff, it's like I'm trying to come up with like an analogy, but it's like having like cottage cheese instead of a steak. Like, a steak is where it's at. Like, you have to chew on the steak.
It's the best analogy ever. Yes.
But that's like where the meat is. That's where like the nourishment is. But if you're just like sipping stuff through a straw, you could be a hospital patient on your back, not doing anything. You don't need teeth for that. Like, what's the enjoyment of that? Like, I like pudding as much as the next person, but a steak is much, much better. So, it's those challenges where I find almost more than anything, it teaches you more about yourself. It gives you a stronger mindset. You take that mindset out of the gym, out of that physical challenge. You go apply it to your like business. And you say, oh, everything's against me. I don't know if I can do this one more project. You remember back into the gym when you had to do one more rep, and you're like, oh, I can do that. I can do this. And
I love that because I feel like it's like meditation. People like sit there and meditate, but the whole point of meditation is to take it off the pillow, take it off the mat and actually into your life. Like, and it's same with training. It's like, okay, you bust your nuts in the gym training, but how can you apply that? And this is where I love where you're taking it right now. It's like, look, if you just went through the grit, if you learned to go that little bit extra and like your mindset is actually changing, you can apply that to literally everything else in the world.
Yep. And I just think it's one of those things that I talk about reference points. So the cool thing about, that point where I got out of that, I finished that indoor triathlon, that was a reference point for me. I was like, I remember before it, how impossible it felt. And I was like, I don't know, I'm scared. Like, I was literally scared of doing the event. And I finished it, and I have that reference point of like, oh, I didn't have to be so scared of this. I can do this, and I can probably do other stuff too. And then you start to recognize that fear, that same fear that happened before the race in other different places. And one of the exercises I talk about on my site is cold shower therapy, which is taking a cold shower every single morning to get used to the idea. When you talk about meditation, taking off the pillow, the idea with cold shower therapy is every morning you have a choice to do the normal, easy, comfortable thing and take a hot shower, or you could do something uncomfortable and that most people think is crazy and turn it as cold as you can and take a freezing cold shower. And people think, oh, you're just trying to be a tough guy. You're just trying to be like blah, 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 blah. And the whole idea of cold shower therapy is it gives you a daily reference point of what it's like to be like, I don't want to do this crap. It's cold. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be fun, but I'm going to do it anyways. Yeah. And when you learn to recognize that reference point, that fear in the shower, and then you finish the shower 5 minutes later, you feel much better, you feel invigorated, and the cold that you were so scared of wasn't really that cold, and it's gone 5 minutes later. You realize, whether it's a new business project, whether it's a new, training protocol you're going to go after, or whether it's a new challenge you're going after, it might feel uncomfortable. It might be a little worrisome at first, but if you go after it, when it's done, you're going to be happy you did it. The pain isn't going to last forever, and you're going to be a better person afterwards. So it's really all about planting those reference points in different physical activities, because once I never thought I could run a marathon. Then I ran one, and I'm like, I can never say I can't. I'm a person who can't run marathons.
Yeah.
I've run multiple marathons, and they're totally doable. I just have to go out and do it. And it gives you a different perspective when you plant flags in reality of where you are and what you've been and what you're capable of.
No, I really like that, because obviously before, when you're in your basement, you're saying all these things, you can't do that, but there's no reason why. It was literally fictitious. But now you've got these, like, as you said, like, physical reference points. It's like, no, I actually did this. Like, I can do this because I did that. There is no reason.
It's a historical fact. Like,
yes,
there's
exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter how much your mind wants to play with you. Like, oh, well, you're different. You haven't trained. Like, no, look up the time. I did that.
Look at the photo. You did it.
Yeah. It's a real thing.
What about getting people kind of like actionable points for them to be able to take right now? What are a few things you want the listener to literally go and act on as soon as this episode wraps up?
Cold showers every morning.
Yes.
So 30 days of cold showers. That's all I ask. So 5 minutes, as cold as your shower goes. If it doesn't go that cold, it's fine. It's not about the temperature. It's about the action and the choice. So do it for 30 days. See how your mind changes about day 3 or 5, and then go from there. And there's an app. We built an app. You have pump-up music. You can track your, like, there's no more excuses for this anymore. Like, you can do it. Take a cold shower, and then start making a list of different things that you want to do but are scared of doing, or you're scared to, like, even tell other people. Because if you're scared to tell someone else, then, like, there's something there. And there's probably a lack of confidence or a lack of, like, certainty on how you're going to do it. But, like, start figuring out what those things are. And it doesn't have to be 20 things. It could be 5. It could be 3. And then have a training protocol and have a something, whether it's a specific fitness plan or something you're going to commit to with a partner. Set a training schedule up so you have a reason to build discipline into your life some way or another, because the cold showers will help. But there's got to be some sort of physical training of the body, and you have to get to the point where your body says, "Oh, I'm so tired, I'm weak, I don't want to do this anymore." And you have to learn to mentally override your body with your mind and say, "Too bad, we're gonna do some more."
Suck it up.
And when you realize you can do that mental override, you don't have to listen to your body, and you realize, the stuff like, oh, well, I overeat because I'm hungry all the time. Like, maybe you're not hungry, maybe you're bored, or maybe you're dehydrated, or, there's other stuff going on. You start understanding that the signals your body's always giving you aren't always the right things. And you start figuring out what you get better attuned to the correct signals that your body's giving you. And you start to, you get better at ignoring the ones that are kind of, you've been misinterpreting for years.
Yeah.
And I think if you take cold showers, you get on a training schedule, and you start kind of working on a list of challenges that you're interested in taking on, I think there's going to be, it might not be right away, but over time there's a switch that's going to flip, and you're going to say, let's go at some point in time.
I really love that, and I really appreciate knowing where you're coming from, because those 3 steps, you've built them up, and you go, like, the cold showers. Like, everyone's going to go, like, cold shower, of course I can do that. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah.
But that's the point. It's like, what's this small little step that we can get you to take to building up, saying, like, okay, now you're going to have a training regimen that you're going to follow. Like, that's a bit bigger of a step. But once you've started the cold showers for a few days, you're going to be like, of course I can do this. And that's where I find actually people that know they're shizzy and are able to coach people through this. So that's why I really appreciate that. That's really good. Now, where does the listener to go and find out more about everything that you're doing, Joel, and how they can get a part of it?
So you can check out everything at impossiblehq.com. That's got a bunch of different branches to different products and blog posts, podcasts, stuff like that. ImpossibleHQ.com is the easiest, and then at ImpossibleHQ on Twitter, or at Joel Runyon on Twitter too, and hit me up and say hi.
Done. We're going to make sure that those links are in the show notes. Joel, thank you so much for this, mate. I really appreciate it. We've been able to tackle some really important stuff that I know is actually going to make a huge difference in people's lives. So that's what we're here for. And I think this is the coolest thing ever, that we can jump on Skype, do this, hit record, and share this out with so many people. It still blows me away.
It's awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me, and let's do it again.
Now it's time for you to get the most out of this, and this is where I can jump in and give the answers that you need. So ask your questions in the comments below so I can personally come through and answer them for you. Plus, the best discussions happen on chrisdufay.com, so click on over to get everything that I've got there for you. And did you like this episode? Because if so, click subscribe so I can send you all the episodes to come for free straight to you. And for everything that I can't fit in these episodes, plus the free guides and coaching episodes, then click on over to chrisdufay.com now. Looking forward to seeing you soon and in the success community.